Inside the Illini, Big Ten College Football is brought to you by your local Anheuser-Busch distributors. Ray Eldridge Jewelry, elegance without the attitude. Peoria and Decatur. Physician's Choice Wellness. Give your weight away today. And Buffalo Wild Wings. Mattoon, Champaign, Savoy.
Welcome to Inside the Illini Big Ten College Football, the show that gives you a unique look into the Illini football program, along with some of the big topics in the Big Ten and across college football. I'm Matt Loveless here at Buffalo Wild Wings in Savoy. It's the season finale for the Illini, so it's the season finale for our show as well, and we might have to start calling it Big 14 football. I know the conference doesn't want a name change, but certainly some conference realignment news we have to get to. Plus, who would have thought? Week 13 in the football season, and we're talking about BCS #1, Notre Dame. All the interesting topics to get to, plus we'll of course talk about this week's game against Northwestern between the Illini and the Wildcats. But first, we always go to our roundtable for our expertise. Bob Osmussen, Steve Kelly, and in this week for Brian Barnhart, Lauren Tate filling in as he has done all season long. We thank him for that. Let's go to the roundtable, guys.
Thanks, Matt. Hello again, everybody. Big news of the week, of course, in the Big Ten is the addition of two schools, Maryland and Rutgers. Bob, surprised at all about that?
Surprised about one of them. Surprised about Rutgers. Because Rutgers doesn't really buy what the Big Ten thinks it buys, which is New York City. Friends that live out in that area say, you don't see a Rutgers hat in New York City, you don't need to see Rutgers paraphernalia. Now Maryland, to me, makes a tremendous amount of sense. It's a new footprint, it's the Baltimore, D.C. area, a huge expanding area, and Maryland needed to make a move financially. So it made sense from their vantage point. I've always thought that that was a school that I could see the Big Ten adding. It makes much more sense to me than Rutgers. I think this is 14 on the way to 16, and maybe more.
Lauren Tate always has an opinion. Let's have yours.
Well, I think it's a money deal for both schools. I mean, I think that both of them are in desperate need of help. Maryland's losing money. They're $5 million in debt in their athletic program, not their football program, but in their athletic program. And here we have a Rutgers team that the university is taking $20 million out of their fund to pay for sports. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, nobody in the Big Ten does that. But I think that both of them, it's good for both of them. I don't think it's good for the Big Ten, other than I know that they will get a lot more people watching. The TV sets, that's fine. They're riding the TV sets into the Big Ten. That's what Maryland's doing. But as far as it being a natural rivalry for anybody in the Big Ten, I don't see that. They say, well, Penn State's a natural rivalry for Maryland. Yeah, 35-1-1. That's what Penn State's record is against Maryland. You can't have a team be a natural rival when they never win a game, can you?
No, that's certainly out of whack there. Go ahead.
Well, the difference between this edition and the Nebraska edition is the feelings within the school. Maryland, they're very torn. The fans there are very torn. The alumni base is very torn. At Nebraska, it was a slam dunk. It was an easy choice. Yeah. The folks there were sick of the Big 12. They were very excited. They felt comfortable with Texas. They were comfortable with the Big 10. Yeah. Maryland is not as comfortable. I think over time, the folks in Maryland will realize, wow, this worked out great for us. Because you can talk about all you want about the ACC and all their traditions, but the folks outside North Carolina don't really consider Maryland a big, full-time traditional rival. They worry about themselves. They don't worry about that.
It's a basketball conference.
It's a basketball conference. I think this is a good deal for Maryland. And frankly, I'm a little interested to go to Maryland for the first time. First time Illinois plays football there. I think that'll be interesting. But in terms of the others, I don't know. We'll be curious to see who the next two schools are, because there's going to be more.
You may have said the name of one of the next ones. How about Texas? There's been talk about that. We'll talk about that as we roll through the show, but right now, let's throw it back to Matt.
Thanks, guys. Straight ahead, the Big Ten schedule, the home schedule is done for the Illini, and Senior Day was at the very least a bit more competitive than the previous Big Ten schedule for Illinois. We'll go back to the Purdue game next on Inside the Illini Big Ten College Football. Welcome back to Inside the Illini here at Buffalo Wild Wings in Savoy. Now, for the second week in a row, the Illini had the chance to become the last Big Ten team to get a conference win. And it was Senior Day, a few games more emotional than that. Parents in town, a pregame ceremony. There were 20 seniors honored for Illinois last week. Our Central Illinois Buick dealers give us our look in the rearview.
The Memorial Stadium crowd bid farewell to a talented group. Michael Buchanan, Terry Hawthorne, Patrick Nixon Yeoman, all part of a big group of guys playing their last home game. Once the ceremonies were over, another uneventful first half of football, other than some key mistakes. On consecutive drives, receiver Ryan Langford fumbled after completions.
You have to control the football. You cannot turn it over.
The D held, but the stars of the first half, field goal kickers. Purdue went up 3-0. Then Illinois' Taylor Zaleski, who's been shaky this year, drilled a 54-yarder to tie it. Purdue added another to make it 6-3 Boilermakers at half.
We fumbled the ball, 3 times in the first half. We can't do that. We're not good enough to overcome those kind of things.
The Illini defense was stellar all day with the exception of a couple of big plays, and this was one of them. A screen, Robert Marv to Akeem Hunt, and Hunt went 63 yards, giving Purdue a 10-point lead.
It was a new play. They hadn't shown it on film, and we're in a man coverage, and they didn't see him.
Well, really, they just had 2 big plays against us, and it was 2 things we really hadn't seen as much, and all the credit goes to them for calling it.
The next 20 minutes, it was a game of catch-up. The Illini pushing in their first touchdown in 7 quarters. Dami Ayula home free to cut the deficit to 3. Purdue put the pressure on again, getting back up by 10, but in the fourth, a drive put the Illini on the Purdue 2. Nate Shieldhouse around to the left, touchdown Illinois, a 2017 game in the fourth.
There for a while, anything we were doing was working. I was running, throwing quick. A lot of stuff we were doing was working.
Purdue trying to run down the clock. They have a 4th and 2. If the Illini get the stop, they get 30 seconds to try and score. They didn't. The Boilermakers ran it down 2-0, handing the Illini their 13th straight Big Ten loss.
You wish you could just get, say one possession, you score a touchdown or get 2 field goals there. It's a different ball game.
We turned the football over too much again. Didn't capitalize on big plays. They capitalized on a couple big plays, and that was the difference of the football game.
2 reasons Illinois lost to Purdue. Pretty simple. Turnovers and big plays against the defense. As simple as that, Lauren. 2 long runs by Purdue and those 3 critical turnovers. I think if Illinois hangs on to the ball, they win the game.
In the last 2 games, we found the Illinois team playing without a turnover and not getting a turnover.
Right.
It's hard to win when you don't force the other team to turn the ball over. And by the way, big plays have been a problem all season long. That first screen pass, the throwback pass to the left, there was no Illinois player on that entire side of the field. I mean, Steve Kelly could have made that run.
Is that right? Steve Kelly could have made that run?
I think so.
Maybe you get 30 yards. I give you half the gain. The turnover deal is something that every school across the country now, it is such a point of emphasis for everybody. You look, and I guarantee you look at the teams that are the best at that, producing turnovers. Not necessarily the margin, but as much as producing turnovers at critical times, and they're winning. Those teams are winning frequently. And usually, if you have the kind of disadvantage Illinois had, 3-0, you're losing. You're losing in a bad way.
Well, what you just described there is the what else is new news.
Right.
I mean, it's been that way all season. Pretty much describes the whole season for the Illini. Big plays, throw in some injuries there too as well. It was interesting. I missed the game. I was in Hawaii doing the Illinois basketball game, but during the football game, I was at Pearl Harbor, and I kept looking at my phone, checking the score. I said, this is not a bad score. Then the more I checked it out, I realized Illinois scored late to make it a respectable game.
Interesting that you're at Pearl Harbor during the Illinois football game.
Kind
of coincidental. I don't know about that.
I did text somebody and said, they said, how'd you like Pearl Harbor? I said, it was very sobering, and the person I texted was at the football game and said, very sobering here as well.
I got a question for both of you. You got to stay with Shieldhouse, right? You got to stay with Shieldhouse. There's a lot of feeling out there in Illini Nation that Shieldhouse is not the answer. I think his problem is what he's surrounded with.
Right.
But another year with Shieldhouse, is that going to be attractive?
I don't know if that'll be what happens. I won't be at all surprised if they look for different options, if there is another option. Aaron Bailey's coming in from Bolingbrook. I don't know if you can play true freshman. You still got Riley O'Toole, although he seems to have been pushed way back. Miles Osei is basically out of the picture. I don't know what the answer is at Illinois right now at quarterback, but I think you're right in the fact that there isn't enough help. He's got to be better protected. He's got to have better help from his receivers. Even the running game, which has gotten better, needs to do more for.
Well, the running game can't go as long as you don't have the blocking, and neither can the passing game. I mean, that's the problem, I think.
Well, the offensive line has been one of the major problems all year long. It just didn't get much better. I suppose it's not as bad as it was at one point, but it didn't improve that much. And when you can't get a yard inside the 1 yard line a couple of games ago, you can't do that on a consistent basis. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, and again, the summer and spring are going to be very critical for this program, but do they have enough even people around to make the changes necessary to get better? I mean, we're looking at a team that should finish 2-10. 2-10, you got to go back to Ron Zook's second year to have a 2-win season. It's a long time ago, and that's a tough thing to try and come back from early in a program. And people are complaining about Tim Beckman now. If he should put together another two-win season, I don't know. It's really tough, but maybe Matt has an answer. Let's go back to Matt, see if he knows what's going on.
You know what, Bob? I'm not sure. Technically, this is my first year, so this is the best Illini football team I've ever covered. But we'll talk a lot more about 2012 and what we expect to go into 2013 later in the show, including that quarterback situation. One of our Facebook followers actually asked us a question about that. Well, coming up next, we look into the Big Ten Conference, both leaders and legends, straight ahead on Inside the Illini Big Ten College Football.
The Inside the Illini Weekly MVP is brought to you by Shields, Gear, Passion, Sports. On another day when the offense couldn't do much, give credit to the guy who tried to put them on his back. Quarterback Nate Shieldhouse did it with his arms and legs, finishing with 160 yards on 22 of 38 passing, adding 76 rush yards with this touchdown. He's our Shields MVP.
Welcome back to the show here at Buffalo Wild Wings in Savoy. Now, Wisconsin still coming into the week waiting to find out who their Big Ten title game opponent is. Nebraska playing a Friday game at a 4-7 Iowa team, while Michigan playing 11-0 Ohio State. No one said Week 13 had to be fair, as our Eric Harold gives us a look at the highlights.
Big Ten action in Lincoln, Nebraska as the Cornhuskers celebrate Senior Day, hoping to celebrate with a win. They need one to keep up with Michigan in the Legends Division, and this helps. Martinez, Bell, 36 yards. Nebraska up by 10 in the first quarter. Later, more Nebraska. Amani Cross takes a handoff, rumbles up the middle. Touchdown Nebraska, up 17-0. Later, third quarter, Taylor Martinez fakes a handoff, passes to Kenny Bell in the flat. Bell sprints past the defense and up the sideline. Nebraska up 31-0, and they win this thing 38-14. They remain atop the Legends Division. Meanwhile, Michigan nipping at their heels in the Legends Division. They need a win to keep up. Denard Robinson is back, but as a running back. Devin Gardner gets the start again, and he scores from 1 yard out. Michigan on the board first, up 7-0. Later, second quarter, Devin Gardner rolls left, looks down the field, flings it 37 yards to Roy Roundtree. Touchdown Michigan. They lead 14-7 at this point, and that lead would get bigger as Gardner fakes a handoff to Denard Robinson, looks back left. Vincent Smith catches it in the flat. He's got blockers, takes it into the end zone for the touchdown. Michigan wins 42-17 over Iowa. They still need a Nebraska loss to give them a shot at the Big Ten title game. And finally, the matchup of the day, Wisconsin against undefeated Ohio State. Would they remain undefeated? Corey Brown in the first quarter takes his punt. He says, yes, we will. And he takes it all the way down the field untouched. It's a foot race, and he wins it easily. Touchdown, Ohio State up 7-0. Later, Carlos Hyde takes a handoff, goes right up the middle into a sea of defenders, and none of them touch him. Carlos Hyde, touchdown, Ohio State. This thing would go to overtime, though, and who else? Hyde, touchdown, puts Ohio State up 21-14. They remain undefeated. Elsewhere in the Big Ten, Northwestern comes out on top against Michigan State as a late 27-yard field goal gives them a 23-20 victory over the Spartans. And finally, the Nittany Lions of Penn State take out Indiana 45-22. Matt McGloin led the way with 395 yards through the air, and Penn State dominates the Hoosiers for their 5th Big Ten win of the year. And that has been your look at last week's Big Ten action. Now we return to the Inside the Illini team in Savoy.
Looking at the Big Ten now, the leaders division, the big game in that division, even though it doesn't really affect the outcome of who the playoff representative is going to be, is Ohio State and Michigan, that game in Columbus. The folks that grew up with that game, and those two states refer to that game as the game, the only game that really matters on their schedule. But Ohio State has a chance to close out, Bob, with a perfect 12-0 record, and that's really all they can shoot for.
Ohio State in my AP ballot right now is number 2, right behind Notre Dame. If Notre Dame were to lose to Southern Cal or even in the bowl game, I am not objecting to the idea of having Ohio State finish number 1. I think they've done everything that they had to do this year. They've kept it going. They played well. They've won some close games. They pulled it out of the fire sometimes. It's very impressive.
Yeah, I think there's a case that could be made for Ohio State to claim the national championship. Would anybody believe, though, however, that they're better than 3 or 4 teams in the SEC? I don't know. I think it's. I think just because you're undefeated doesn't necessarily mean you're the best team. If they were to play Alabama, for example, how big of an underdog would they be?
Yes, I've heard 10 points, 14 points.
Touchdown at least. So, you know, this is kind of hard to understand how you can be an underdog in a game and yet be the number 1 team.
But I will give them the coaching advantage. Okay, when they're playing against pretty much anybody in the country, I think they've got an advantage because of the guy in charge of their program. And I think he proves that every week when he wins games where they're not playing well. The Purdue game, they did not play well. They came back and got that victory. They don't always play the best. Wisconsin game, late in the game, they gave the lead up, but you just knew for some reason overtime was going to the Buckeyes. And I just felt like, okay, the smarter guy on the sidelines is going to win this game, and it's Urban Meyer. It's going to be Urban Meyer every time. And I'm telling you, this guy is going to win some national titles. He isn't going to get worse at Ohio State. I mean, they're 11-0, and they're just going. They're just getting started. I mean, this could be a monster.
On the other side, the Legends division, Nebraska playing on Friday. By the way, just a note, a programming note, so to speak. We tape some segments of this show earlier in the week, so we're not sure at this point what is going to happen in that Nebraska game, but they're probably headed to the title game.
Sure.
Against Wisconsin.
Maybe.
Well, if Ohio State beats Michigan, it won't matter. Right?
It doesn't matter, that's right.
That's true.
And Nebraska is playing very well. Their big problem this year was their game in Columbus. They got clubbed by, again,
63 points.
Yeah, exactly, and look at that game and see, wow, that's such an impressive win for Ohio State. Very, very good job by them, and it's still Nebraska's come back and could win 9, 10, 11 games. Pretty good. And
back to the leaders. At the bottom of the leaders is Illinois, still looking for that first win. We'll talk more about their chances to get that against Northwestern coming up. We'll go back to Matt right now.
Hey, thanks, guys. Up next, our final Inside the Illini edition of Illini in the Pros, where to the former Orange and Blue stack up here as division races heat up in the NFL. That's next on Inside the Illini, Big Ten College Football.
The Inside the Illini Play of the Week is sponsored by our local Anheuser-Busch distributor, Aguadio & Sons Distributing. And this is our play not just because it was Illinois' first offensive touchdown in 8 quarters, but watch the footwork of freshman running back Damie Ayula. Down 10, Ayula juked his way in for a 16-yard touchdown at the time, getting the Illini within a field goal. Damie Ayula with our Play of the Week.
Hi, folks. Welcome back to Inside the Illini Big Ten College Football here at Buffalo Wild Wings in Savoy. Now, we've had fun following former Illini players all season in the NFL. Our Noah Newman gives us our latest installment of Illini in the Pros.
A rock-solid rookie season continued for former Illini Mikel LaShore in Detroit on Sunday. The Centennial grad scored his 5th touchdown of the season on this 1-yard run. He rushed for 84 yards on 19 carries against the Packers, but unfortunately for his team, Green Bay stole the game on this late touchdown pass to Randall Cobb, and LaShore's Lions lost 24-20. Afterwards, his coach called out the offense.
When they do get a play, we got to be able to make it. But that's not just Matt, that's the whole offense. You know, Matt can be sharper, our whole offense can be sharper. We can run the ball better. And we get a stop at the end of the game better. You know, it's a team game.
So through 8 games, LaShore has now rushed for just over 500 yards on 124 carries. That is 4 yards per carry. He's also caught 22 passes for 127 yards. For more on Illini in the Pros, we'll send it back to you guys in Savoy.
One question about Mikel LaShore, who is playing very well right now. One question about him that I heard the announcers talk about this last week was his durability. I think the folks in charge of the Lions would like to see him carry the ball more. They want to see him doing more during the week. I thought he ran very well against the Packers, but they lost the game. And
Bob, you're not going to have a guy carry that many more times when he's coming off injury.
Well, that's true.
I think you always are a little more careful with him.
Plus, you've got different guys hitting you than he had in college.
That's a good point.
It's a whole different game there.
And and I can sense when they're playing in Detroit, he's got the fans on his side. He gets those 8-9 yard gashes. I think the people really love that. He's really tough around the end zone. He made a second effort to score against Green Bay that really was the old Mikel, and again, very impressive work by him. One thing I need an explanation about is the senior on the back of his uniform. I don't know if you guys have seen this. It says LaShore Senior, so he's got a newborn. Maybe that's what the deal is. It's very confusing, but I don't know what was going on with that, but maybe that's something to ask his mom the next time we talk to her.
That'd be a good idea. He had 19 carries, 84 yards last week, Mikel LaShore. Let's go out to New England, where Illinois is pretty well represented.
Well, offensively, I think Humanawanui, and the reason nobody knows about him is because nobody can pronounce it, but he's playing very well. He's starting at tight end, and he's been a starter for them off and on this season. And then, of course, you got Brandon Lloyd, who had 4 catches for 45 yards. But I think the most overlooked Illini, without a doubt in my mind right now, playing in the pros, is Humanawanui.
And back on the defensive side of New England is Tavon Wilson, who had his 4th interception of the season. Is he going to make the all-rookie team?
Oh, absolutely. He's having a great year. And again, we go back to this every time. Bill Belichick knows what he's doing when it comes to the draft, because he took a guy in the second round and nobody had any faith in, and he's playing great.
And let's just go back to Matt right now. Matt?
Thanks, guys. Straight ahead, some Eastern Illinois football as FCS playoff matchups are set. We go inside the Panthers next on Inside the Illini, Big Ten College Football.
The Inside the Illini Gem of the Week is brought to you by Ray Eldridge Jewelry. Elegance without the attitude. Peoria and Decatur. A shout out to our friends at Northern Illinois, winners of the MAC West. And thanks in large part to this gem, Martell Moore with the reception, stays on his feet and breaks free for a 73-yard touchdown. Watch as Moore balances himself with the back of the hand holding the football. 7 points the difference in this win over Toledo for our Gem of the Week.
Welcome back to Buffalo Wild Wings for Inside the Illini Big Ten College Football, a segment where we talk some Eastern Illinois. Now their coach, Dino Babers, this week named OVC Coach of the Year. He's a finalist for National Coach of the Year. Their receiver, Eric Laura, named Player of the Year in the Ohio Valley Conference. But as Eastern found out last week, the competition gets a little tougher as you get closer to playoff season. We go inside the Panthers with Eastern Illinois University.
2 conference champions met last Saturday night in Conway, Arkansas, as OVC champion Eastern Illinois and Southland Conference champion Central Arkansas played the final game of the regular season. EIU put up points first, scoring after recovering a fumble to go up 7-0. The Bears of Central Arkansas took a 10-7 lead into the second quarter. EIU would use the same formula as they did in the first quarter to regain the lead. Roosevelt Holiday's forced fumble led to Chris Wright's second touchdown. UCA's potent offense put up 2 more touchdowns in the quarter to go up 24-16. The Panthers, for the 3rd time in the half, turned a turnover into a touchdown. The 1-point deficit at halftime was as close as EIU would get. The Bears ran off 17 points in a row to go up 41-23. Chris Wright scored his 3rd touchdown of the day in the 4th, which was EIU's final score of the day. EIU drops their regular season finale to UCA 48-30.
Our defense came out badly in the first half. We got 3 big turnovers, fumbles. The defense came out to play. Offense started off. We started off all right. We just struggled in the second half. Couldn't get much going in the third quarter.
I thought our guys gave great effort. I thought it was a great find to find out where we were at. 10th ranked team in the country, 24-23 at halftime. We tried a lot of different new things, maybe took some chances that we normally wouldn't take in a normal game, and to be 1 point down from the 10th ranked team in the country and Southland champion, I thought it was an excellent show.
In the defeat, Eric Laura set the single-season FCS record for receptions in a season.
It kind of just feels great that all my hard work my whole life has kind of, given me something, and I've worked towards something and achieved something. And, I can only give thanks to the coaches and my team because, you know, without them, it wouldn't have been possible.
In less than 24 hours after falling to the Bears of UCA, EIU found their postseason destination and opponent.
Your bracket. There you go.
This will be the first ever meeting between EIU and South Dakota State. The Jackrabbits finished second in the Missouri Valley Conference this season and will host EIU later today.
They're big, strong, like to hit, and they're physical. You know, we just need to do what we've been doing all season, spread defenses out, use our speed, and you know, play the ball.
Pretty basic defense. They're a fast group of guys. They fly around. I mean, we got some athletes on our side of the ball too, so we're looking to expose some of their weaknesses.
Once you punch the ticket to the big dance, that all the chips are on the table now. And you know, the game last week against UCA, it was kind of a difficult game to play because they'd already qualified for the playoffs. We'd already qualified for the playoffs. You want to win the game, but yet you're doing certain things because you don't want certain guys to get hurt because you have a playoff date the next week. But that's not the case now. All the gloves come off. It's a fist fight. And, you know, if you lose, you're done. So everybody's in. You're all in. And everybody will be fighting. It should be one of the most physical contests. It should be one of the most physical contests in the opening rounds, I'd imagine.
This will be the Panthers' 8th postseason appearance since 2000 and their first since 2009. Kickoff is at 2 later today from Brookings, South Dakota. The game can be viewed on ESPN3. Reporting on the Eastern Illinois Panthers for Inside the Illini, I'm Ryan Pierce for WEIU TV.
And thank you to Eastern Illinois all season for those reports. We really appreciate it. Up next, we've been making our picks all season. Coming up, our Healthy Choice Pick'ems. It's anybody's game with 1 week to go. That's coming up on Inside the Illini Big Ten College Football. Welcome back to Inside the Illini. Time now for us to make our Healthy Choice Pick'ems, brought to you by Physicians Choice Wellness. Give your weight away today. And all season we've been making our picks, and it is a tight race. Let's take a look at the standings. Steve and I tied up top with, we all missed our picks last week, by the way. Steve, I know you're upset because Lauren picked for you last week.
I have filed an official protest because Lauren picked for me when I was gone with the basketball team, and he knows I would never pick against Ohio State, and he did that knowing that it was going to mess up the standings.
He was almost
Thank
right,
you.
though.
Right.
He was almost right.
I picked the home field.
And you might have picked the better team that day.
Well, they outplayed them in the second half. They did, but I don't know what happened in the overtime. Ohio State scored and Wisconsin couldn't.
That's right.
And in fairness, Oregon, Kansas State, and USC were the other winners we expected to pick. I don't think we can be faulted for picking those teams, but 0-4, so the standings remain the same in terms of how far we are apart, but $1,500 to a charity of our choice goes to our winner. So if it's between you and me, Steve, I got to pick a good one this week, and I'm going to be picking the UCLA-Stanford game, two teams with upsets, or minor upsets last week. I think we found out that UCLA might just be the better team in terms of UCLA versus USC. I thought Stanford had a better game against Oregon. So if I'm picking head-to-head UCLA-Stanford, I'm picking the Bruins to beat the Cardinals, so I'm picking UCLA over Stanford.
I'm going to take the aforementioned Ohio State team against Michigan. I've been following that game since I was a kid. Anything can happen in this. I've seen it happen all the time with the underranked team, the underdog pulling up for the win. I don't think it's going to happen later today. I think Ohio State wins that and closes out a 12-0 season.
Well, I'm going to go with the new Big Ten team, Rutgers, losing at Pitt. What do you think of that?
Why not? And since they won't let me take a Friday game, I wanted Eastern Michigan against Northern Illinois. I was going to take the Huskies. I'm going to go with the Illinois Northwestern game. I am tempted to pick Illinois, but I won't. I've seen too often this game happen where Illinois goes up to the former Dyke Stadium, Ryan Field, and just does not play very well. And I think Pat Fitzgerald's got his team playing great. He wants a better bowl. 9 wins guarantees a better bowl. So I think Northwestern wins this one going away. And as you can tell by the standings, I need the help. I've gone 2 weeks in a row with chalk and got killed.
Well, it was an 18.5-point spread here, so that's about the surest pick we've had this season.
Yeah, and I probably just guaranteed Illinois a victory, which would be nice too. What the heck?
Yeah, there you go. We take that. All right, well, here we go to Facebook and answer your questions, and we talked about it a bit earlier, and we talked about it off camera as well, and I think we all have the answer to this, but it sparks a greater discussion. From Eric Coons, what are the chances Coach Beckman rolls the dice and goes with O'Toole the rest of the year? Now, we talked a little bit earlier in the show. I know you mentioned
the rest of the year means today.
Today. We got this question last week, in fairness to Eric, but what do you see about the quarterback?
He's made it pretty clear to me that he feels Shieldhouse gives him the best chance to win. I think he feels that O'Toole can't escape the rush as well as Shieldhouse might, but Shieldhouse isn't the answer either. So I'm a little surprised that O'Toole hasn't had at least a shot here or there late in the season, but they basically just dropped him along the wayside, and they're going with Shieldhouse all the way. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, they've given you no indication over the last few games when they could have done that. The way the season was going, there would have been a good time to do it, so I don't see it happening in the last game.
Right.
Yeah, Eric is asking a question many people have asked. They want to know where Riley's at, and again, I think he was given an opportunity early in the year. It didn't work out. He's okay, and I'll be curious to see his role next year, but I think right now the idea is Nathan Shieldhouse gives them the best chance in their final game today. And I think if you're Tim Beckman, you got to do everything you can to get that third win, get that Big Ten win, get that streak ended. You've got to, and that does not mean rolling the dice with starting a younger guy out there. It just makes no sense.
And Lauren, you mentioned the mobility aspect. Shieldhouse can move a little bit better. I think he breaks free for a couple of first downs when that protection breaks down. That's something O'Toole can't necessarily do.
I think that's exactly the reason why they're doing this. I think they're staying with the guy. And you got to remember, the last couple of games, there have been points in those games midway through the game where Illinois still had a chance. I mean, it wasn't like they were ready to, just experiment with somebody. I think they felt like that Shieldhouse gave them that choice.
And the physical difference between Northwestern and Illinois, especially with Northwestern having some guys banged up, isn't as drastic as you might think. And whereas Illinois played pretty well against Minnesota, pretty well against Purdue, I won't be surprised if they do the same thing with Nathan playing quarterback against Northwestern. I think they have the opportunity to play well. The question is whether or not they can get over the hump. And Northwestern has been good against some teams about sealing the deal and not so good against others. Last week they got it done, and they'll obviously be motivated to get it done.
One thing about Northwestern is every game they play has been pretty close. I mean, they've lost some really close games. They could actually, I could see them being 10-1 right now.
Right.
And I think the real question, taking Eric's question a step further, is what do we do for next year? And we'll talk a little bit more about that coming up later in the show as we look back at 2012 and talk about 2013 a little bit. But coming up next, the in-state rivalry, the team that shall not be named, as they said after the game on Saturday, Northwestern. We'll take a look at the Wildcats next on Inside the Illini, Big Ten College Football. Welcome back to Inside the Illini. Well, it's been a very good season up in Evanston. Northwestern is 8-3 and very competitive losses. Penn State, Nebraska, and Michigan. But the Illini are hoping this is one of those anything can happen rivalry games. Our O'Brien Auto Park of Urbana weekly preview looks at Northwestern.
The Wildcats have a shot at their first 10-win season since 1995, and they're just a couple of plays away from a shot at the Big Ten title this year. This when most preseason prognostications had them middle of the road at best. So to give you an idea of how expectations have changed, listen to Coach Pat Fitzgerald when asked of this year's surprising success.
I'm disappointed that we're not sitting here ready to play for a championship and needing this win to get to a championship. I'm disappointed in that.
The Illini may argue the exact definition of disappointment, but at 0-7 in the Big Ten, all that's left is this rivalry game.
Coach Fitzy's done a great job up there, and that's what rivalries are all about.
Obviously we got the better of them the last couple of years, and they've been some pretty memorable games.
You can throw the records out. You can kind of throw everything out when you get into a rivalry game. It's 60 minutes of playing against somebody that you got a ton of respect for, so it should be a heck of a football game.
The Wildcats boast a top 20 rushing attack with one of the best 1-2 punches in the league. Running back Venrick Mark and quarterback Kane Coulter need a combined 85 yards today for 2,000 on the season.
Kane Coulter's had a great year. I mean, he has run the offense exactly the way you try to run that offense.
Both were questionable coming into the week with injuries, but Fitzgerald cleared that up quickly when asked about Mark's status.
I asked him this morning, I said, I'm going to get asked if you're going to play, and he's like, absolutely. So take that for what it's worth.
Discussed to a lesser degree in this rivalry, recruiting. Both the Illini and Wildcats battling for the talent in the Chicago area. So even though they'll end up last in the Big Ten, Illinois could get a big victory. That'll last through the 2013 recruiting season.
You say you're only as good as your last game, so it's a very, very important football game. It's a rivalry football game.
You want to win a state and have bragging rights over a state. So that's what we're really focusing on right now.
Well, I know coming into the week there were some question marks surrounding Benrick Mark and Kane Coulter, and I know on Monday that Coach Fitzgerald said they will be playing. So I think that spells a lot of trouble for the Illini this week.
I think so, and I think Bob and Lauren will both back me up on this. We've been covering this rivalry for a long time. It seems to me, now you could make a case maybe not so the last couple of years which Illinois won, but it seems to me over the years, Northwestern takes this game more seriously than does Illinois. It's a bigger game for them.
Well, it means more to them, absolutely. I mean, a better bowl game and just the rivalry with Illinois and the fact that they're trying to win the Chicago area in terms of recruiting. Illinois is not doing very well up there this year, and Northwestern, you know, they see this as an opportunity to take advantage. When you're wounded, boy, in the recruiting business and your team isn't going well, teams take advantage of you.
Especially in Evanston. I always feel like Northwestern's just got a tremendous advantage in that building. Now, Illinois doesn't mean Illinois can't win there, but for whatever reason, the Wildcats are better there. And yeah, like Lauren said, they're gaining some advantages in recruiting. The state's best player is going to be going there and playing quarterback of the future there. So I really like what Pat Fitzgerald's done. Here's a guy that's had an opportunity, probably more than we know, to move on. I would think Notre Dame would have been a great fit. I would think Penn State would have been a great fit. There are a lot of places where he would fit in perfectly, but he has settled in there. That's his alma mater. His family loves it there. He loves the athletic director there. He loves the way the thing's set up. And frankly, there isn't the pressure. Now, the flip side of that is, I don't think Pat Fitzgerald can win a national title at Northwestern. I shouldn't say never, but I think it's very, very, very unlikely. I think if he were to go to one of these other programs, you stick Pat Fitzgerald at Notre Dame, I guarantee he's playing for a national title at some point.
And we'll talk briefly about the last Big Ten win for the Illini, Northwestern.
Right.
We talked a little bit off camera about how this team doesn't really have that kind of fight to rally back in a game like this anymore.
Yeah, that game was in the 30s when and Nathan Shieldhouse rallied him back in the final couple of minutes, and A.J. Jenkins had a big game. You know, A.J. Jenkins last year, Mikel LaShore the year before in the Northwestern game at Wrigley Field, those are monumental games in the Illinois record book, but Illinois doesn't have those kind of playmakers right now.
No, and Langford fumbled twice in the last game in the first quarter and didn't play anymore, and they said it was his ankle. I wonder. But Malines hasn't had the kind of year. So there just hasn't been any receiver step up.
John Davis.
John Davis has been hurt. Now he may play this week, but it's just been a disaster as far as the passing. Illinois got the worst passing, one of the worst passing teams in the country.
Well, a lot of the statistical categories play out for them in a lot of areas of this game, including defending the run. And we saw what they did against Michigan, or what they didn't do against Michigan with Denard Robinson and Fitz Toussaint. This is almost a better tandem between Coulter and the running back, Benrick Mark. How are they going to stop the run? Are they going to stop?
It's going to be tough. Jonathan Brown will not play again, so that that certainly hurts, and they haven't been able to do it very effectively. So it's not a good sign going in. That's part of the reason they're an 18-point underdog.
Well, if they're going to win, Bob Osmussen, how would they win? How would Illinois pull this off?
Well, first of all, get the ball, get some turnovers. That's been a big flaw the whole year. They've got to fix that part. That's critical.
All right, we'll talk about some of those problems during the year. We do have one more segment coming up here. The final segment of the season. I'm going to miss you guys. We'll talk about 2012 and some of the things coming up for 2013 next on Inside the Illini, Big Ten College Football. Welcome back to Inside the Illini, Big Ten College Football, the final segment of the season, and giving us a chance, since we know the season ends today in just a few hours, we might as well be a little bit reflective on the 2012 season. Looking at it, obviously things didn't go right at all in any phase of the game. Changes need to be made. Where are those changes going to happen?
Well, there's $1 million question.
Yeah, there you go.
We talked about the quarterback
Might cost
situation.
that much, actually.
Yeah,
That's right.
serious.
We talked about the quarterback situation as far as the players go, whether or not Nathan Shieldhouse is the guy still next year. We all think he is, given what we know now. Some help on the offensive line is definitely needed. Help on the defensive line needed as well. You could go right down the roster and look for help everywhere.
Lauren's shaking your head in disappointment there.
Well, I am disappointed
Yeah.
this season. I can tell you, I could give you a baker's dozen list of the reasons I'm disappointed, but I think there's going to have to be changes in the staff. I mean, you know, I don't know who I'm specifically talking about, but I think they have to do that. I think they have to try to get a couple of junior college players in here. Somebody can help immediately. For the most part, the freshmen don't help. Now, I know you're going to say we got 2 linebackers starting that are freshmen, but that isn't how you win.
Right.
You win with veteran players in the Big Ten.
I think the spring and the winter are going to be critical in terms of rebuilding positive feelings, because Tim Beckman is facing a really monumental task here. The fans are pretty much against him. I don't think anybody would argue that. I don't think that's fair. I think you have to give a guy more than 1 year. I've never thought that was proper. I think you have to let the guy establish himself. He didn't go to Toledo and fix the thing right away either, but year 2 and year 3 went much better. So you got to give him the opportunity to do that. But he's got some real morale building to do, and I think it starts internally with his team. One thing I'd suggest to Coach Beckman, not that he's going to listen to me, I'm just a dumb sports writer.
Does he watch every week?
I hope he does.
Yeah.
I think the level of openness with the program needs to be established. I think he needs to let fans in more. I think he needs to let the media in more. I think he needs to be more transparent. I don't know why I think that. I just think the other way didn't work. Okay, you went 2-9 or 2-10 with the other way. Let's see what happens when you let people in a little bit more. Let people know what you're feeling. Let people know. Honestly, I didn't know how that he was losing weight during the year. It'd been nice halfway through the year if he just said, hey, you know, I'm not feeling very good. I'm having a tough time. I don't know if that would matter at all or not, but I think that's what he needs to do. He needs to just be wide open right there. Let people know what he's feeling, what they're doing, and how they're trying to fix the thing.
Yeah, he just kind of seemed mad all season, which you don't blame him for because of how tough the season went. But yeah, knowing a little bit more about Tim Beckman, the man. So quickly, if we just have a little bit of time left, what are our expectations going into 2013? What can we hope for?
Well, I think the schedule's tougher, so that's not what you want to hear either. The personnel may not be as good either. Would you like to think they could do better than a 2-10 record?
See, now the schedule's tougher and the team isn't as good. How are we going to do?
There might be some different coaches.
They will win more than 2 games, though. Okay. They will win more than 2 games. Absolutely win more than 2 games, and they'll be better. There's no question in my mind they'll be better.
Okay.
Well, it wasn't all bad this season. As we went back and looked at some of the highlights, especially from earlier in the year, there were some high points and some promising starts by those freshman linebackers. That was a nice point in the season. And before we go, we want to leave you with some of those high points. Thank you for watching Inside the Illini all season. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to our crew. Thank you to Bob, Steve, Lauren, and Brian Barnhart, who's off enjoying the islands in Maui right now.
You know why?
Yeah. Oh, that's too bad. Thanks for watching all season. Here are your highlights from 2012.
Inside the Illini, Big Ten College Football is brought to you by your local Anheuser-Busch distributors. Ray Eldridge Jewelry, elegance without the attitude. Peoria and Decatur. Physician's Choice Wellness, give away your weight today. And Buffalo Wild Wings, Mattoon, Champaign, Savoy.